Alright, so now we're going to be programming the Viking robot. So this one's designed to be a little robot that does like the pirate ship rides where it swings back and forth. So you put your hand in front of the left sensor, it'll go to the left. You put your hand in front of the right sensor, it'll then swing to the right. And then after it's gone back and forth 100 times in total, it'll play a little song. So we can go ahead and get started on it. You guys should be familiar with the start. We need to include the Smart Inventor library. And then since we're going to be using the motors, we're going to need to do the DC motor use command. So that way everything gets all set up for us. We'll start by checking the sensors. Again, you guys should know this, how to do this. Just the left sensor analog read. We're only be using the left and the right sensors for this, because we don't need the center sensor for it to swing back and forth. We'll get started with the if. What we're going to do is we're going to see if the left sensor is reading something that is less than a base level. So kind of like what we did with the crab robot, where when we shine the flashlight on it, we need to know where it started at. We're going to need to do that same thing. So we'll go ahead and up here we'll create two variables, base level left and base level right, so that way we know where to start at. And then in the setup, we're going to read them, so that way we get our starting values to know where to begin from. And just like what we did with the crab, we'll subtract 50 from it. So that way it makes it so that we have a little bit of extra room, so that way if the lighting changes slightly, it'll still work. And then you can put your hand in front of it and it'll be able to tell the difference between what it normally reads and what it reads when your hand's in front of it. So we can go ahead and we'll do the same for the right. And just like what we oftentimes do, the second one's going to be an else instead of just an if, so that way we don't have it do multiple things at once. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll wait to do the 100 swing part until we actually get it swinging first. So the first thing that we actually need to do in this is we need to make sure that we are not going the same direction twice, because if we do, then our robot's not going to work how we want, because it's just going to like go up to one side and then not go the other way. So what we're going to do is we're going to add if statement inside of here. That is, if last direction is right, then we're going to change last direction to left, and then we can actually do our move down here. So the reason, and then we'll do the same for the right side. So we haven't created any of these variables yet, but if you kind of look at it, it kind of makes sense. We're keeping track of the last direction that we moved as being either left or right. And then we're making sure before we actually move that the last direction we went was the opposite of the one that we're going to go to. So this makes sure that we don't go the same way twice, and it forces you to have to alternate which way you're moving. So we can go ahead and define all these. So last direction, right, and left are all variables, and we're going to be putting them up at the top of the code. So right here below our base levels. And the reason we have left and right as a variable here, instead of just saying last direction equals 0 or last direction equals 1, is by doing it this way it's easier to keep track of which way is left and right, and it makes a lot more sense when we look at the code. If we say last direction equals 0, we don't necessarily know which way that is. If we say last direction equals right, we then know for sure that the last direction that we moved was to the right, without having to remember if 0 or 1 is right or left. So now we got this, we kind of got all the logic set up for the swinging. We can go ahead and add in the motors. What we're going to do is we're going to have the motors move at 100 speed for 75 milliseconds, and then we're going to have it set to loose. So this way it will go up to the left, and it'll be loose, so it'll kind of coast back, and then if you time it right, you can have it swing back the other way, and it should climb up real high, and then it'll just go back and forth like that. And you should be able to get it swing pretty high. So if we're going to the left, we're going to have it go clockwise, and if we're going to the right, we're going to have it go counterclockwise. So now you should have your robot able to swing back and forth by you controlling it. So we'll go ahead and we'll work on the 100 swing part. So first what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable that keeps track of how many times we've actually swung back and forth. So up at the top of our code, we're going to create a variable. We're going to call it success count. So it's going to keep track of how many successful swings we've done. So down here in our swing part, if we do actually swing, we're going to increase success count by 1. So this plus equals right here. So normally what we've done is like, in this case would be like success count equals success count plus 1. So we kind of talked about that earlier, about how that adds 1 to success count and saves it back. Well, this is a shorthand way of doing that. If you do plus equals, it'll add 1 to the variable. So this will increase success count by 1. So it just makes it a little bit simpler for us to write. So we'll go and we'll do the same for the right. So now if we go to the left, it adds 1, then to the right, it adds 1, so on and so forth. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to check to see if success count is greater than 100. So if it is, then we need to play a song. However, what we're going to do before we actually play that song is we're going to reset success count to 0. So that way it does, once we get greater than 100, it doesn't keep playing every single time through. It'll only play it once we've gone back up and done another 100 swings. So we'll just reset to 0, and then we can go through and actually play our song. So the code for playing the song is smartinventor.buzz. And what this does is we can play one note for a certain amount of time. So you type note all in capital, underscore, and then whichever note you want it to play, and it'll play that note for, what it'll do is it'll do a fraction of a second. So this will be 1/6 of a second. So it's the tempo of how often the beat goes. So a bigger number is a short amount of time, smaller number is a longer time. So we'll go ahead and we'll play 3 notes, so that way it has a little bit of a song to it. So we're going to play C5, E5, and then G5. And it'll just kind of do a nice little song that takes about half a second. So now we should have code for a robot that'll have it swing back and forth, and then just after 100 times it'll play this little song, and then keep swinging back and forth, and you can just keep going and going and going. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys learned something.